farms that should have some type of outreach or internship component, because I look at agriculture as really as a gateway into any industry you want to go in. That's the other aspect of sustainability, just having the youth come in. Because I think a lot of time we talk about from like an environmental standpoint, but from a human aspect of just having a sustainable structure to get students into farming and to keep them interested and to give them opportunity is really, really, really important.
What we saw here in Iowa was an effort to repopulate our state with milkweeds, and we do that in every corner and crevice that we can. It doesn't take large acreage. It can be a very small corner at the edge of the field. It could be a garden. It can be some timber soils, some pastures, maybe where you're not growing row crops. But we've been making efforts to not only inform farmers and communicate the need, but also get these plants established.
Welcome back to Farmside Chat. I'm Zippy Duval, and I'm president of American Farm Bureau, and I'm host of Farmside Chat today, and look forward to having a conversation around pollinators and all those little creatures that work in and around our farm to help us produce and grow the products that we grow for our farm that ends up on your table. And I know you'll be interested in hearing it. They're not only on our farms, they're out in your yards, around your flowers, and in our gardens across America. We're going to talk about the preservation of habitat of the monarch butterfly and honeybees. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about what we're doing on the farm to help preserve that habitat. I have a great guest with me today. He's not only a Farm Bureau leader, but he's a good friend of mine. He serves on the board of directors of American Farm Bureau. Craig Hill. Him and his family have a family farm of livestock. They grow corn and soybeans in Warren County, Iowa. And thanks, Craig, for being on the show. We look forward to hearing about the work that you're doing on your farm to help preserve this habitat. I want to let Craig introduce himself and tell our audience a little bit about yourself and your family and your farm, and maybe a little bit about your Farm Bureau journey to being president of Iowa Farm Bureau.
Sure, Zippy. Hi, Zippy. Thanks so much. I guess I grew up on a century farm. My mother still lives at that home where I grew up. When I married my wife, Patty, we just moved a quarter mile down the road to a house that my great-grandmother had built. And from there, I guess we had two children, a son who farms with us, and a daughter who became an attorney. And when she married and started to have children, she kicked us out of that house. We had to move down the road a little bit further, another half mile. And so it's a family operation, farmed all my life. It's in my blood. And I guess with regards to that journey, farming's all I ever wanted to do. But through the 80s, and you remember the 1980s, the farm crisis days. At that time, it was difficult for everyone, but I learned a lesson. And we wrestle with Mother Nature in agriculture, and we have to work with Mother Nature, but sometimes we got to defeat Mother Nature and maybe manage around Mother Nature. But government has a big influence on our lives too, and the policies that we live under. And through the 80s, it became very apparent to me that we not only had to wrestle with Mother Nature, we had to wrestle with government and policy. And to do that, we had to unite and organize farmers together with one voice. And so I joined Farm Bureau in a leadership role at the county level. And from there, I just found opportunities beyond the county, state, and serving on the American Farm Bureau board today, an opportunity to wrestle with government a little bit and policy and help improve the lives of farmers everywhere. So that's kind of my journey.
So, before we start talking about pollinating plants and trees, I'd like for you to pollinate a little bit for future leadership. What would you say to a young person out there that might be interested in playing a role in an organization like Farm Bureau?
Well, certainly, and get active and get organized together with others at whatever level of interest you have. If it's a certain, species of animal, or if it's a certain element of policy, environmental sciences, you can find a place in Farm Bureau to work and provide advice and get active. And so I would just, encourage anyone, whatever, uh, whatever age they are or whatever level of career they are, to be involved in Farm Bureau. It's just a great organization.
Thank you, Craig, and I totally agree with that. With so many opportunities to grow and really be a part of something bigger than what we really are individually. So, thank you for that. Today's topic is about talking about pollinators, and really and truly, probably as young farmers, we were aware they were there and doing a big job for us. But here recently, it's become a lot bigger issue to all of us. One that we're paying attention to and want to help protect and make sure that they are here to do their work for us each and every day. I understand that the monarch butterfly resides, or their breeding ground is in the Midwest, in your state and surrounding states. Tell us a little bit about the butterfly and the breeding area, and what that butterfly might do between winter and summer.
Well, the monarch is just such an amazing creature. It's really fascinating what they do, the job they do, and their journey as they migrate. But they are a pollinator, and so they will seek out flowering plants everywhere for nectar, and they'll move from flowering plant to flowering plant and help pollinate different species everywhere. But something unique about the monarch is they only lay their eggs, and they only and the caterpillars only survive when eating the milkweed plant. And there's about 130 species of milkweeds across the country, maybe 17 species in Iowa, but only about 3 species are really important to the monarch as they fly through Iowa. So, it's important that we have those milkweed plants there. And, while there's hundreds of flowering plants that they eat on, their reproduction weighs upon the milkweed. And our job as farmers is to make sure those milkweed plants are there and ready for them as they come through.
So, what kind of role does the farmers in Iowa play in that conservation program?
Well, I tell you, farmers, being a producer yourself, Zippy, we don't like weeds. And the milkweed appeared to most farmers as a weed, and so we attempted to control that. But now we have to acknowledge, after we've seen somewhat of a precipitous decline in the monarch population in the last 2 decades, we have a need for that plant. And so what we saw here in Iowa was an effort to repopulate our state with milkweeds, and we do that in every corner and crevice that we can. It doesn't take large acreage. It can be a very small corner at the edge of the field. It could be a garden. It can be some timber soils, some pastures, maybe where you're not growing row crops. But we've been making efforts to not only inform farmers and communicate the need, but also get these plants established. And we call them stems, but we work everywhere we can with industry, with government, with our university to establish more and more stems of milkweed.
So, does it affect your crops in any way? Those milkweeds
No,
being
no,
around the edge?
it's really advantageous because we don't, necessarily place the milkweed plant in our growing corn and soybean fields. They're at the edge of the field. They're on roadside ditches. They're in gardens, yards, places that maybe utilities rest, things like that.
When did the farmers start paying attention to the point to where they had to reestablish them? How long has that program been in place?
Yeah. So our organization, the Monarch Conservation Consortium here in Iowa, we began in 2015, and we had seen and witnessed, the decline of the monarch. We knew the problem. We looked to science, and Iowa State University, our land grant university, is a big partner with us in this, and we had to, find out what the cause was and what's the problem, and the need was for more habitat. And so, how do we get more habitat? Well, you look to the landowner for that. And farmers, family farms, occupy about 97% of Iowa. We have, of course, utilities, industry, and cities and so on. But just everywhere, we looked for a partner. And we put about 40 organizations together. We had some government entities, we had some colleges, universities, Iowa State, very important partner. We also had a lot of farm groups, corn growers, soybean association. We just put together a whole consortium of interested groups. We pooled ourselves and our resources, and we put efforts, in play that would put new pollinator packages in many of our federal farm programs with CRP, with the EQIP program, and then on private lands as well. A lot of dollars have been involved to help populate Iowa with more milkweed, but it's been more of a communication and an effort to involve people with an understanding of what needs to be done.
So the Monarch breeding ground is in your area. It's I think, if I'm correct, they leave your area and go to Mexico for the winter. Is that correct?
Well, as I mentioned, they're an amazing critter, and you also said they're a big worker. Well, they are a worker in pollination, but they are a big worker in their migration. They travel as much as 3,000 miles.
Wow.
And that's from Canada to Mexico and back. And, something that is very unique, they look for places to breed and reproduce along the way. It's not the same monarch that travels from Canada to Mexico. So they stop in Iowa and they reproduce in Iowa, and those caterpillars grow to butterflies, and they maybe have 2 or 3 generations in one of their trips as they migrate across this country and across the Midwest.
Since I'm not from Midwest, it's interesting I'd like to know, is there any old farmer tales that go along with when they show up or leave? 'Cause like here in my community or my country, when the pecan tree starts putting out, the last frost is gone. So when the monarch comes or leaves, is it a signal for y'all for anything?
No, of course, it's springtime when they arrive, and we enjoy their beauty, of course. But by fall, we seldom see a monarch. When it's harvest time, they're just not visible to us here. They all head to Mexico, and they find themselves colonizing in Mexico in some fir forests. And this is the area called the Michoacan area of Mexico, and they'll colonize over hectares or over acres, large areas in which they'll congregate. And they measure the monarch in those areas, and that's how we knew the population was declining. So it wasn't by the lack of visibility here in Iowa, it was by seeing the acreage that was covered by these colonies of monarchs in Mexico start to shrink.
So I know that our listeners out there, a lot of our listeners are urban and suburban area people that listen to this program. You talk about the population. Are the efforts that your farmers are involved in and other associated groups, can you tell a difference? Are we improving the population?
What we're measuring is the number of stems of milkweeds. And so, yes, we have populated the state with a lot more milkweed. So progress has been made there. But it will be perhaps a decade before you can really see a population change. Like other things, it maybe takes several years to really see the changes in the population as they colonize in Mexico. There's been some progress, but the progress we're measuring is the habitat that we're providing here within our state, something we have control of.
So habitat's important, and lack of habitat might have caused some of the decline. Is there any other reason that might have caused decline? Any other industry or any other thing that might have caused that?
There's lots of speculation. But I think we have to focus on the habitat. That's something that we can control and something that we can work toward. Uh, there's speculation over the number of acres that have been converted to corn and soybeans from the prairie, but we broke the prairie a century ago. Uh, so there's something that has gone on, whether it's something to do with climate change or other events, but our focus is purely on habitat and how we could put more milkweed stems on our acres here in Iowa.
So I know establishing habitat, whether it's for the monarch or anything else, uh, doesn't pay for itself. What do farmers need? How do they need? What help do they need to continue that work to encourage the population?
There's been a lot of synergies with our efforts through other conservation programs that are offered by state and federal governments. So we look to farm policy in the way we administer the CRP program, for instance. I have 3 sites on my farm. They're just small acreages, but we put pollinator plots out. The seed's very expensive. We have a number of flowers that are growing there, including the milkweed, and we put those spatially around the farm so that we can attract populations of monarchs and be a part of this effort. So it's just about partnership. I think that's what we need is lots of partnerships with cities, with municipalities, with utilities, folks everywhere in the city and in the country to establish more flowering plants that can be utilized as a food source and more milkweed plants that can be utilized for eggs to be laid and for caterpillars to feed for their reproduction.
So for our suburban and urban friends, they could put something in their flower beds that could encourage that. Are there other ways that they could get involved to help the population?
Absolutely. Well, if you're organized with a group, we'd invite you to join our consortium, our partners that are working together, organizations. We have up over 40 now that belong to us. So whether it's a JC or a Lions Club, those are opportunities to join and spread the word. But gardeners, homeowners, whether it's on your front lawn or your backyard or in your garden, there's always a place for a flowering plant, and there's lots of suitable places for a milkweed.
So if they wanted to Google that organization that they might want to be a part of, what would they Google?
I would just Google the Monarch Conservation Consortium of Iowa. And if not, reach out to the Farm Bureau here in Iowa because we'd be glad to help.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate you talking to us about this important project that's going on in your community. And I hope that the people who are listening realize that our farmers, we protect all kind of creatures around our farm, and we provide habitat for not only monarch butterflies, but all kinds of wildlife that live in and around our farms and do a really good job at it. And a lot of people don't really understand that. So I thank you for coming on to the program today and sharing the information from your community. And we surely appreciate what you and your farmers do in your area in Iowa. It's a great state, a great agricultural state, and you got a wonderful Farm Bureau. And y'all do a great job. So thank you so much for all of that.
Thank you, President Ball.
Well, welcome back to Farmside Chat. I'm Zippy Duval, and I'm host of this podcast, and look forward to having all of you join us each and every time. We've had some great guests over the past, but I got a good one today. I'm looking forward to having this conversation with Kamal Bell, who is from Durham, North Carolina. And Kamal, if I get anything wrong, now you tell me. Go ahead.
Usually people say Kamal was Kamal, so everybody gives. I've even heard camel in my lifetime.
Well, hey, with a name like Zippy, I've been called everything.
I've heard everything, Jamal, camel, but I just like hey, everybody, it's Kamal. And people, they get it right after that, it's cool. If they don't, I'm just like, all right, that's cool.
I got you, Kamal. I got you. So I got Kamal Bell with us today, and we're going to talk about his experience of how he got to where he is and what he's doing. And I think one of the great things about this guest that we're going to talk to is he not only is interested in agriculture, he's also interested in telling the agricultural story, but doing it through a lot of young people. And a lot of those same traits I've carried through my career as a farmer. I loved having young people around me and them asking me questions and exposing the world of agriculture to a new generation is exciting to me. Kamal, I know that your operation works around sustainable foods. I know I'd love to talk to you a little bit about food deserts, about beekeeping, and your support of the minorities in rural and urban areas of our country or your community. So tell us a little bit about yourself, what opened up the door to do what you're doing with young people in agriculture, and how you do it a little bit.
Thank you, President Duvall. I just want to first just thank you all for having me. What's actually really interesting about our story is that we actually received our first grant from the Farm Bureau. And it was the Ag in the Classroom grant. It was $500 for us to get power tools, which we still have, and boots. The students have outgrown them, and jeans for the students so they can have farm attire. So the Farm Bureau has been very supportive of Sankofa literally from its inception to like now. So I just always make sure I speak about that when I'm talking about the Sankofa story. The reason that we actually started Sankofa was because I wasn't allowed to run the program in the school system. So I started out as an agriculture teacher at a middle school here in Durham, and I proposed the idea just because I saw how the students gravitated toward my class. They picked up concepts in agriculture. They had a desire to change their circumstances because they came out of really, really tough circumstances. And I don't like to use like the Title I label because students who aren't in Title I schools still face the same challenges of students who do. So I would just say the students just came from really tough communities. And when I started teaching agriculture, we developed a school garden. We ended up having chickens at one point. We had ducks, and it's all in the school courtyard that was closed in. So it was a perfect area for it. And I was also at this time acquiring a farm through the USDA. And once we purchased the farm, I had an idea to merge the youth with the farm. And I was just like, if I could go back to my 12 or 13-year-old self, what would I want to see? And the students who have stuck with it have literally seen us develop the farm from, we have 5 acres cleared now. The farm is 12 acres, but it was all trees. So they've seen it from that point to a point now where we're harvesting products every week and selling them to our local community and distribution services. And they're also getting hands-on experience. They're also getting public speaking. They're also being able to get the STEM experience. They're certified beekeepers, all because they have decided to stick with something and to see it through. So when I was looking at the problems that the communities that we wanted to serve faced, these were all things that I saw. So I'm not a person who's I'll address things that have gone wrong historically, but I'm not going to say, because of that, we should have this. I'm going to say, I see that these things could have been done better, and some things have been intentional, some things haven't. But it's up to us to be able to have that idea and for us to push ourselves forward. And if people support us, we work with them and we appreciate the support. If they don't, but it has to be a piece of self-determination, and farming encompasses all of those things for us.
Well, that's exciting. And you mentioned the name of your farm, Sankofa?
Yes,
Sankofa. Sankofa. Sankofa Farms. So tell us a little bit about, I heard you tell the story about where you got the name, and tell us a little bit more about that farm. You said 5 acres, but tell us what's on that farm. What are the kids doing?
So Sankofa is a term that means to go back and get it. It is represented by a mythical bird. But when I talk to the students, we kind of take in our own definition. And just because sometimes definitions can be used and people are just like, I don't understand that. But we look at it as remembering our African ancestry as we move forward in life. So that goes back to us looking at our interaction with agriculture here in America and in Africa and in different parts of the world. So those are all things that we talk about, and it gives the students a sense of ownership. And on our farm now, We literally have, this is gonna, everybody looks at me like I'm crazy when I say this. We have 45 beehives. That number would be at 53 by next Monday. So 53 beehives. And we can easily end up with 80 beehives this year, easily. And we also have 4 caterpillar tunnels that are stocked with produce right now. Like, it looks so beautiful. We'll post some pictures this weekend of the tunnels. And then we're getting a 30 by 70 foot high tunnel, 30 by 72 foot high tunnel. We'll have that built by probably second week of June. And we're going to be finished building 3 more caterpillar tunnels by the end of May. So we'll have 7 caterpillar tunnels. No, yeah, 7 caterpillar tunnels. And then, my bad, 8 caterpillar tunnels. No, 7. I'm like mixing up in my head. 7 caterpillar tunnels, and then 1 30 by 72 foot high tunnel, plus 53 plus beehives, probably by mid-June.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. It's growing fast too. So, have you found other supporters in the community?
Yes, we have. There are groups there's a youth group at NC State, Powerful Zai, that works with us very closely. There's an organization called Rural Advancement Foundation International. The Farm Bill, literally the Farm Bill comes out every year to like follow up on the Sankofa story. So it's always great to connect us with resources. We've worked with, I wouldn't miss somebody. We recently just worked with NC Idea here in North Carolina. And I always like to give people the names of the organizations we work with so that they can reach out to them as well if they ever need support with ideas. And then we have a really good marketing director. His name is Devin McAllister, that really helps us push the image. And Tractor Supply, they're very great supporters of Sankofa. And the Toro Lawn Care Company. So these are all people, and Bear Crop Science. These are all organizations that have supported Sankofa along this journey.
So what are you getting ready to harvest there?
We're harvest. I have an order tomorrow. We harvest on Tuesday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So we are harvesting almost 7 days a week at this point. And right now we're doing a lot of chard, kale, lettuce, and we're doing starboard and red Russian and red board kale. So we do different varieties of these products. And then on May, I believe 21st, all of our tomatoes, peppers, and we're getting like a warm season lettuce that are coming in, and we have 2 tunnels full of those coming in, and then we're also doing some zucchini and squash. We're gonna be doing some watermelon, and we're gonna be doing honey, of course. So we're gonna be doing a lot with the farm this year.
So I got a grandson that goes to a little school. They got a little garden, and they're taught how to take it, cook it, and eat it themselves. But when you get 13, 14 years old, kale don't sound real good. It don't really sound good to me either. I try to eat some of it, but about half of those things you talked about, you can't hardly get a 13, 14-year-old to eat it. So are you teaching them how to cook it and eat it a little bit too?
So I can't cook. I can't cook at all. But I can't. Only thing that you would want me to probably cook is a steak, and that's it. I can cook a steak, but other than that, I can't cook. We have a nutritionist that has come out in the past, and he actually does like culturally inspired meals. So he's talked with us a lot how to prepare the foods. But what has happened with the students, and originally they didn't get paid at first at the farm. It was more so them learning. Now they're part-time employees. They're farm managers. They're just like, hey, Mr. Bell, I think we should just sell it because they're thinking about the finances. So I'm working with them with that, just saying, hey, y'all, look. If you take home food, it's not a burden on Sankofa. We're going to be fine. You all can take as much food as you like. But they're thinking like, if they take it, they can sell it. So we're working on that with them right now. But we have done things in the past with teaching the students how to prepare the foods. And I think as they start to get older, they'll start to see more of the utility of how to prepare these foods and integrate them into their lifestyles. Because we're just like, everything's been changing so much. So it's just like our youngest student, one of our youngest students, 5 years ago, he's now going to college. So I think this will be like a full circle moment for him.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I'm sure, like our leadership development program in Farm Bureau, as people come through that program and they end up going to cattlemen or soybean to their programs and be maybe leaders in those organizations, they always have a place in their heart. They love Farm Bureau because that's what taught them. And I think you're doing that same thing with young people. I know I did when I had young people working for me. So last year with the pandemic and last March, we saw a few empty shelves across the country, and everybody was worried about farmers going back to work. Our organization and a lot of people did a lot of work with Feeding America and doing things to try to make sure everybody got something to eat, because so many people was losing their jobs and or being work from home and all that stuff. So I think what we thought was a food desert really became a food desert then.
Yep.
So talk to me a little bit about food deserts in your community and the work you do around that.
So that's a very good question, and we've been explaining food deserts from a point where we define it. We don't look at the radius as much anymore. And the reason I started not to look at the radius was because I have neighbors who live literally 30 yards from the farm or 50 yards from the farm, and they still have food accessibility issues. And so what I define and talk to students is just any place where people have a hard time accessing healthy food. That's a great point. With the pandemic, the grocery stores aren't in the place where they were a year before or years prior. So now this issue of getting and having access to fresh food is affecting demographics that it don't really fit in the definition anymore. So what we started to do is look at distribution services that had missions at getting food out to these markets. Because what we started to see was that us harvesting the food and then us growing it, taking care, like catching bees at the farm and managing bees and making sure all of our systems are automated takes a lot of time. So our tactic more so moved to partner with organizations who we might not be able to sell the food at a retail price, but we can do a wholesale price, but we also save more of our time. So we changed our strategy to working more so with organizations who have direct contact with the community members that we want to serve, and then selling them the food at a wholesale price, so then that can redirect our attention to doing things at the farm and building our infrastructure out. So once the infrastructure is built out, we'll start doing more vending where we're offering a retail price. But right now, it's just to give us that jump start and to build the infrastructure so we can more be in line with our mission at Sankofa Farms.
So I heard you mention a while ago, and I read where the program you use is based off the STEM program. A lot of people know what STEM is, some people don't. Tell us how you use the STEM program to educate young men on your farm.
So when we do a STEM I feel like it should really be STEAM and the A be for agriculture, but everybody else uses the A for arts. When I originally heard the word, I'm just like, well, it's STEAM, like the A is for agriculture. Like, no, it's for arts. I'm like, okay. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that everything we show the students, we give like the science behind it. So my favorite example is the bees. And there's a such thing as called bee math. And we have to learn bee math in order to be good beekeepers. So that's learning the development stages of the bee. So an example would be an egg laid by a queen. If they want to raise the larva to be a queen bee, or they want to prepare this egg to hatch out as a queen, you have 16 days. So you have to be able to calculate these type of things. Oh, I'm seeing this drone brood over here in this cap. How many days does it take for cat brood to hatch? These are all things that have to go into the beekeeping. When we're talking about the science aspect of the crops, we're looking at all of our crops. We see that, all right, we have an automated watering system. We had to engineer that. We had to design the watering system, put the timers on it, set the timers, making sure our plants get the adequate water. All right, I noticed that the plants on that are around the 30-foot range aren't as tall as the plants at the 50-foot range. We start troubleshooting. So the STEM aspect is to more so troubleshoot and teach about the direction of where you can go to better the processes at the farm. We're looking at now, one of the students, I actually have it here, he flies one of our drones. And we have two, and he got a lot of practice with this drone. It's the DJI, this is the Mavic Mini. And the student, if you look at a lot of drone pictures on the farm, he's flying this drone. So I'm looking at like, well, if he continues to go with it, we'll be able to have infrared sensors and all of these type of things at the farm because he got exposure to that first. So that's the way that we're thinking. It's more so as a foundation for the students to go forward. And one of the students wants to go into a completely different field, but he's learning all these necessities and these skills at the farm.
So that drone, you gonna strap a backpack on it, and you're gonna just spray individual weeds. I know what you're gonna do.
That would be nice. That would be nice. As we move to our field work, that would be so nice just to, because like when I talk to the students, I was like, y'all, like it was really cool is to see how much food a small space can produce. And then I'm talking to them like, just imagine if we had 500 acres, what would we do? And their minds start to churn. So then when information comes out about processes in farming, they're not all one-sided. Because they had the experience on a small scale, they can then start to troubleshoot what it looks like on a larger scale. Right. So like if we want to start doing field work, we have to get our tractor running. Like we've had problems with our tractor. So somebody needs to go into engineering. So it's just all of these things that they get to see at this stage at the farm.
I got a tractor that needs to be redone. So if you need a project.
That'll probably be like 3 or 4 more years before we have a student that's capable of doing that. But if it's not fixed, then we'll come down.
Well, I was kidding about that backpack on that drone, but for our listeners that really don't know about agriculture and what's coming down the pipe, that technology is right in front of us. I mean, it's very close to being delivered to the farm where we can really be precision controlling plants by just spraying an individual plant from a drone, and that's all. That is so exciting. Some of your students may be the ones that's finishing that up and starting new projects, something similar like that, because it is important that our kids go into those fields, because that's what keeps us on the cutting edge. That's what makes us be able to compete with the world, and that's what's going to make us be sustainable as farmers across America, is having that cutting edge technology and having it at a price where our farmers, all sizes, can afford to have it. So that's important. Yeah. Listen, I know we're coming up on Pollinator Week. It's somewhere about the middle of June. All us farmers know how important pollinators are and bees and what they do for our farms. But tell me about your beekeeping classes that you have on the farm there. And a lot of my listeners aren't really farmers, so educate them a little bit about beekeeping and the good that bees do for agriculture.
Yeah, so bees are really interesting for the pollination aspect, but also from an education aspect. So we actually, if anybody doesn't believe me, you can go look at it. We actually have an Airbnb experience, and every time I start talking about it, people are like, "You have an Airbnb?" Like, no, we don't have a house out there, like a structure, but we do have an experience, and it's called Bees in the Trap. And TRAP is an acronym for Teaching Responsible Apiary Practices. So anyone who's interested in getting into beekeeping or interested about bees, they can come out and learn about the equipment you need to get into the beekeeping, and then also how to manage your colony properly. So they'll get a chance to suit up, and then I'll take them through a colony, and I'll show them how to smoke a hive, how to inspect your bees, what you're looking for, and people love it. Like, it stays booked up, and it's actually the #1 experience in the state. It's like, so if you want to come through North Carolina and you type in Sankofa Farms or Bees in the Trap, it's the first thing that's going to pop up. And when we look at the pollinator aspect, I do talk to the students about how the bees that we're keeping are not native to our environment. So we have to be very, very responsible in introducing them so they don't outcompete other pollinators. So a bumblebee theoretically would be, or a mason bee, they would be technically better pollinators than Italian bees. But when I talk to the students about is making sure we don't scale up too large and making sure that we're keeping and we're providing resources and structures for the other pollinators as well. So when I'm talking to the students, I'm talking to them like, hey, even though we like bees and they're lucrative, we have to make sure that we're responsible in our role in supporting all pollinators. So, well, one thing that we're going to do this year, I'm hoping we can get to it. We have a seed drill, and we're going to plant pollinator crops. We're just going to drill a whole bunch of pollinator crops in our open space to make sure that we create a habitat for all pollinators. That includes, as much as we have an issue with the wasps and hornets and these other ones that are larger and sting that hurt, but we want to make sure that our interaction with the bees also helps us with other pollinators as well. So I think that helps them develop a more holistic approach to dealing with bees as well.
Yeah, as our farmers continue to work on sustainability, we're seeing more and more of those practices on large scale farms. So that is something that's definitely catching on, because we all are concerned about the health of our bees and our pollinators to make sure they keep them around. They're the one that actually spreads the good news around and makes sure that those fruits and vegetables come on and produce like they should. So tell me, how old is your farm? How long have you been doing the education? And I know you said you have one young man that's in college now, but where are some of them at, and what are they doing that's passed through your program?
So we started in 2016, and we're 5 years old now, and the students. So we've had cohorts of students. The first cohort was 4 students, and I still keep in contact with 3 of the 4. 2 of them have stayed. So Kamani and Cameron both went to go get certified. Kamani's actually going to North Carolina A&T to pursue a degree in agriculture. He'll be going this fall. And Cameron decided to go work at Amazon, but he's still working at the farm as well. And we're going to be talking to him about getting into the 2+2 program at NC State. And then after those 2 years, you have your associates. You can go forward to go to A&T, North Carolina A&T, or to go to North Carolina State. He wants to pursue aquaponics. So we're looking at just getting him that support so he can take that next step. But Kamani has already made it. The 2 younger students, they came in after these 2. And we have had students who quit, and I'll touch on that after I talk about the students who have stuck with it. One is a junior. He's actually number 1 or 2 in his class in high school right now. His younger brother, Jamil, is he's the one that flies the drone. So we have to find a lot of stuff because he's like the top 5 percentile for his grade. So he catches on to everything really quickly. So we have to find things to get him on track to because he picks up on things so quickly. He's like, what's next? So I'm just like, all right, gotta find something else. So the drone is his project. So those 2 are here. Then we have another student who's a freshman who I could literally give any piece of equipment to, and he's figured out how to work things before me. And I'm just like, are you the head farmer? Or are you the student? So he's student number 5. We have a student. We're partnering with the program here in Orange County where they're working with youth in foster care, and they want to get them hands-on job experience. And he's working at the farm. And then Mikhail and Jamil have a younger cousin who's in 5th grade, who we're trying to figure out something. I think it's animals. So we're gonna get some animals for him, and he's at the farm as well. So they're all wrapped into the system of the farm. And the students in the past, we've had students who quit, and what we saw with that was that students who did not and were not on the same page with their parents, it did not work. So the student wanted to be there and the parent really wanted to be there, it didn't work. And if the parent wanted if the parent wanted the student to be there, the student didn't, or if the student did and the parent did, if it was either way, it did not work out. So what I made a decision to do was to focus on this core group of students so that we can actually, because I picked the students up. So it would be hard when I'm going to get a student and I get a call oh, he or she's not coming today, or he's not coming today. So I'm just that's resources that we're wasting. So we made a conscious decision to really focus on the students they're at the farm right now.
I think some of the things I learned on the farm, and I'm sure you did too, and what you're teaching those young men, I talk to a lot of young men that come through my farm, is responsibility. These are the things I'm expecting you to do, and hey, you can sit around on a bucket, but you're gonna be however long you sit on that bucket, you're gonna be that much longer before you go home. Mm-hmm. Or that animal's sick, he didn't eat. You got to tell somebody. We got to take care of it. All those kind of things in life that we learn on the farm carry over into having children, taking care of them, taking care of your mom and daddy when they get old. All that kind of carries over because it becomes part of your nature, and that's all about farming and learning the ways of life, whether it be in a plant, animal or our family or our community, people in our community. Kamal, I really appreciate you coming on with me today. I'm going to give you, before I do my commercial, I'm going to let you do your commercial. And I know that running a farm, a lot of times, especially when you're doing things that we all need you to do. I mean, you talking about every farm ought to have a educational piece. Well, a lot of farmers aren't, they don't know how to, or they don't want to talk about it. Not that they don't want to, they just don't know how to do that. Really, truly, I've taken people out to a farm on a tour, and you introduce the farmer, and he says, well, I got cows, and we milk them twice a day, and they come pick the milk up. And it's like, you're not going to tell them any more than that? So I'm not sure every farmer is adjusted to do that education. But so we depend on people like you. And a lot of our farmers that are doing agritourism, we depend on them to help us tell that story. And most of the time they have the exposure to the people. So first I want to thank you. And I know in doing those things, it takes a lot of funds to do that. So give us a 5-second commercial and tell people why do you need to support, and what is it you need?
So the best way you can support Sankofa, and it's not always in a monetary sense. It can literally just be liking, subscribe. We have a YouTube channel at Sankofa Farms. We have an Instagram, Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn, Kamal Bell. All these platforms, every share, this is so cool, I heard about you on the pod. Like, all of those things go so far. We're also, we have a website. You can go there. You can donate. The donate link's at the top. But you also could just, we have a beekeeping manual. You can send that to somebody. You can purchase it, send it to somebody. We're getting ready to do a virtual Lisa Hive program where people can lease beehives from us virtually, and we'll send updates on those colonies throughout the beekeeping season for people who buy in. So there are a lot of ways that you can support Sankofa. And but the first is just by following us on social media, on any platform, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then sharing and engaging in our content. That goes a long way.
Sankofa Farms, Kamal Bale, doing a tremendous job. We're proud of you, Kamal. We're proud of your students. And we look forward to hearing from the success from your students down the road. And all those things he asked you to do on social media, do it for us too. Do it for us too. And on my podcast here at Farmside Chat. Keep up the good work, and God bless you, Kamal.
All right, and thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Farmside Chat. Please be sure to subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And while you're at it, take a minute to rate and review the podcast. This helps us continue to bring you farm fresh content that everyone can enjoy. Until next time, thank you, and God bless you.